Hello, my name is Nicholas Morgan. I'm an editor at Ahval News, and this is Turkey Abroad. Joining me today is Imdat Oner. He is a former Turkish diplomat who served in Venezuela from 2014 to 2016, and today he is a policy analyst at the Jack D. Gordon Institute in Miami. Imdat, welcome.
Thank you, Nicholas, for having me.
So, what I would like to ask you about has to do with some of the allegations that are being made by Sedat Peker, the Turkish mobster, who is currently on the run and pointing his finger at a number of high-ranking Turkish government officials and their allies. And particularly one of the allegations from he made in his video last week about drug trafficking between Turkey and Venezuela. But before we go right into the narco trafficking bit, I want to ask you, because I know that you have experience, of course, in Venezuela and you've written about the Turkish Venezuelan relationship before. But would you be able to quickly run us through like the nature of the relationship between Turkey and Venezuela to begin?
Yeah, of course. Actually, this is very quite interesting coincidence because almost 2 years ago, Mr. Ilhan Taner hosted me again in Ahval podcast, and we discussed Turkey-Venezuela relations just after Juan Guaido, the opposition member, just allegedly said that he is the president of Venezuela, and Maduro is no more president, and these allegations, and then this kind of a picture came to the scene, and following this event, Erdogan and the government members stand behind Maduro, and this has been a kind of turn into a spotlight on Turkey-Venezuela relations. And at that time, we discussed what Turkey is trying to do in Venezuela, because thousands of miles away, Turkey is quite new in Latin America, but all of a sudden, this just brought Turkey with Iran, China, Russia against the United States in Latin America. This was quite new for Turkish foreign policy, indeed. And then we discussed in a deeper way how Turkey's relation with Venezuela, took a different turn and took a different shape and format, that many people are not quite aware of what's happening between the two countries, because Venezuela was getting more isolated. Venezuela was getting more involved, especially the government, the Maduro administration was getting more involved in the corruption scandals, the international narco trafficking. And at this time, Turkey involved in this picture that's Venezuela, Turkey. Both countries strengthened their cooperation and intensified their political, economic, and cultural engagement. So this was quite interesting, right? So, and then at that time, I said that I think we should be quite cautious on this engagement, this rapprochement, because this is not transparent. This relations is so murky, and we don't have a deep knowledge what's happening between the two countries, because the official figures do not tell us the potential relations. So that's why this kind of non-transparency between the two regimes were quite on the agenda of the Western countries, especially the United States. The United States had kind of several investigations on Turkey's relation with Venezuela, and we have seen lots of news in the Western media, blaming Turkey on extending a helping hand to Maduro administration, while the United States is trying to undermine his power because he was a corrupt leader, he was an authoritarian leader, and the election is a fraud, and the country is totally under a dictatorship, right? So this kind of non-transparency between the relations indeed has not got enough attention from the Turkish media or from the Turkish audience, mostly because of, I guess, the United States is a mastermind, is trying to stage a coup against again a Latin American country, a kind of a narrative which is coming from the Cold War era. and Turkish people repeating these stories, these narratives. And also, Turkey is under some, pressure by the United States because of Turkey's some, relation with Russia or Iran. So that this come a little bit more complicated when Turkey, improved its relation with Venezuela. And at that time, I said, we should be more careful because we don't know what's happening between the two countries. And I think this will create some repercussion on Turkey's relation with the United States. And it's happened. I mean, Trump administration and now Biden administration, they are both against Maduro, and they always blame Maduro administration on several, accusation on the like drug trafficking, big corruption scandals. And now we witnessed that Turkey is also involved in this corruption scandal, for example, in 2018, especially. I just want to remind it. So when this Turkey's gold trade increased with Venezuela in 2018, Turkey imported like around $1 billion gold trade with Venezuela at that time, and then a U.S. delegation from Treasury Department came to Turkey and said that, look, your trade is a kind of is a part of a corruption, and is a part of a big network that the Maduro administration, especially his handyman Alex Saab, created in several countries through front and shell companies. And Turkey was doing a kind of gold in exchange for food program, a kind of a mechanism. Venezuela was sending the gold, and Turkey was sending the cheap food to Venezuela. And then the United States investigation revealed that this Alex Saab, Maduro's handyman, involved in several corruption cases, and his companies in Turkey also involved in this corruption scandals. And then these companies and Alex Saab was sanctioned. This also, confirmed that yes, Turkey and Venezuela have not a, kind of a transparent relations, and there are deeper issues in these relations, right? Mm-hmm. And when we came like just 2 weeks ago, like after 2 years later, after we discussed these issues, this drug trafficking, cocaine trafficking just came to the headline, and the bombshell revelations of the Sedat Peker on YouTube all of a sudden just brought the public attention to Turkey's relation with Venezuela. And then last year there was a legislation, there was the agreement between Turkey and Venezuela that improves Turkey's economic relation with Venezuela, and there was a kind of import tariff removal process, especially on the cheese. And this has been a quite interesting issue in the public discussions. Everybody's saying, okay, why Turkey, is trying to import thousands of cheese from Venezuela, while Venezuela doesn't have that capacity to import. And then, this cocaine trafficking just, revealed. So people just, trying to connect the dots and saying that, okay, then this white cheese is indeed might be, the cocaine, right? So also, there are some rumors that drug dealers also using cheese as a synonym of the cocaine. So this indeed showed that and gave us a credit that our suspicions, our questions were indeed quite right and reasonable. And then this, especially this issue became more critical when the Colombian case, if you remember, like last year in 2020, a huge amount of cocaine shipment have been seized in Colombia. But that time, this didn't get enough attention from the Turkish audience. But it showed us that also the consecutive shipments and the seized, like from Panama, from Cuba, from Brazil, they all have been seized. And this showed us that, okay, then Turkey slowly but surely turn into a kind of a cocaine, transit route, right? And Sedat Peker's allegation on, the Mehmet Ağar, a former interior minister involved in this case also, show that, okay, Turkey has serious problems still on state mafia relations, right? Or deep state apparatus. These all issues that we have discussed for several years, like at least for three decades since the Susurluk incident in Turkey. Nothing changed in Turkey, but I think something changed. The Turkey's kind of business with illicit organizations, kind of corrupt politicians, corrupt organizations, took a kind of a transnational format, transnational character. So I think that is the critical point for Turkish foreign policy. Turkey is trying to open up Latin America through diplomatic engagement, political engagement, and economic engagement. But we see that more than that, Turkey kind of open up a cocaine and the drug trafficking, and the policy against. I mean, this is of course not the official state policy, but we know that some politically powerful and connected members or government establishment involved in these issues. I mean, I can further discuss the Venezuela context with your question if you want, and we can continue our discussion further.
Well, with all of these, with all these claims coming out of Peker about the relationship between the state and the mafia, as you mentioned, none of that is particularly new. I mean, since the 1990s, we've been having those discussions. But I think that for many, whenever they think about this sort of nexus between the state and organized crime, Venezuela might more immediately come to mind, especially, of course, with for our U.S. audience, especially given the last few years in which every official that's been indicted by the U.S. Justice Department or sanctioned, including up to President Maduro himself. In a number of these cases, they've talked about the connection to narco trafficking there. And the thing I'd like to ask you is that by opening up to Venezuela, in this case for Turkey, would you say it's accurate that they ended up opening a door, so to speak, to just the built-in illicit side of the dealings by these Venezuelan officials, and corruption was just kind of like baked into this relationship, whether it was intended to or not?
Yeah, indeed. Like Venezuela was always known with this drug trafficking and corruption. As you mentioned, the United States started an investigation and indictment. The federal judge, the prosecutors, and directly pointed to Maduro and the senior government members and also army officials, right? So this is a well-known case in Latin America. Venezuela has been a transit route for cocaine trafficking and huge amount of corruption, and and also other several issues. And this was on this always under this kind of investigation of the both Obama administration and then Trump administration and then now Biden administration, right? Because in its backyard of in the Western Hemisphere, there is a kind of a narco regime, right? A narco what some calls narco dictatorship is rising, right? And the drug trafficking is one of the national security threat in the eyes of United States administration, right? So that's why any country coming and doing some deals and business with Venezuela is always on the radar of United States, right? So when we look at like Iranians increasing presence in Venezuela especially, and then Russia and China, of course, these are part of great power competition, but like a country like Turkey, all of a sudden they just came and gained a really a significant kind of a space in Venezuelan market. So I think that that's quite interesting. And slowly but surely we saw that this trade or these bilateral relations, is quite interesting and quite, dark indeed. Doesn't reveal something that people are asking. And at this point, the United States also putting some, questioning on Turkey, what Turkey is doing here, right? Are you trying to, violate U.S. sanctions, trying to, undermine U.S. sanctions through your gold trade and through other sorts of business? And I think after this point, after Sedat Peker's revelations, this narco trafficking, this cocaine trafficking will be also, under U.S. Agenda on the bilateral relations with Turkey, right? So because there is still no investigation in Turkey, there is a huge, scandals, allegations against the government establishment, but there is no single investigation. So that made this, relations also more, complicated, and I think brought into the agenda of the United States.
You know, as you mentioned, there hasn't been a single concerted set of investigations in Turkey into these allegations, and since Pekar started making them, I think about like over a month ago now, there's been some stirrings from the state in response to they arrested his brother, of course. They now have the indictment against the ex-interior minister Mehmet Agar, who himself was brought up in the allegations for being involved in drug trafficking. And interestingly enough, this one I'd really like to get your view on. The son of the former Turkish Prime Minister Binali Yildirim Erkam, he was accused of being roped into narco trafficking by Sedat Peker. What do you make of this allegation? Do you think it's a credible one, or or why not?
Yeah, actually, it was very interesting for me because I studied and researched on Turkey's relations with Venezuela more than 7 years. Right, I also professionally involved in this relation, and um, I can understand some business, especially like gold trade. It was so lucrative, and is a making too much profits for Turkey, right? And you can understand to some extent, but a business like narco trafficking, and with the allegations that the former prime minister's son also involved in this, totally changed the picture, right? Because we see that, okay, you see a kind of a benefit, a profit in Venezuela, but then the government establishment thinks that they can do any sorts of business with Venezuela. I think this is quite critical, right? Because the government establishment, the son of former prime minister, you know, it means that he has politically strong connections. It means that he is politically covered from any immunity, right? So from any judicial process, if anything happens. So as we see right now, there's serious allegations, but no investigation so far. So the Peker claimed that when this cocaine shipment in Colombia, like around 5 tons, cocaine shipment seized by the Colombian police, uh, these drug dealers in Turkey, these some mobs or these drug dealer organizations, they consider that Venezuela could be an alternative route, right? And this Sedat Peker claimed that the son of prime minister visited Venezuela 2 times, one in December last year and one in February this year, and um, he claimed that this cocaine will be arriving in Turkey, right, through Panama, and then it will be transferred to some small yachts or small the ships, and then it will be heading to a marina in the border. So this was another discussion, the Bodrum Yalakavak marina, and then this will be shipped to Syria last year. I
Exactly.
mean, yeah, it's very complicated structure. The Venezuela, Turkey, Syria. So this, we know that like this cocaine cultivation boomed in Colombia in the last 10 years, maybe in the last 7 years. And this rising, the supply needed some, new demand and new market, new destinations. So we see that, the Asia and the Middle East, Africa became new route for this cocaine shipment from Latin America, because the United States, the biggest market of cocaine, is under close scrutiny of the United States, the DEA. So that's why this kind of cocaine trafficking is moving to the Asia, Middle East, and maybe Europe, right? So here then Turkey becomes a new a principal cocaine route for the shipment and all of this transition from Latin America. And the funny thing, when this allegations asked to Binali Yildirim, he just denied, right? Strongly denied. And he said that, no, my son was in Venezuela, yeah, but he just visited because,
COVID supplies.
Yeah, some COVID supplies, some masks and stuff.
Mosque.
Yeah. And then, I follow closely Turkey's, all sorts of engagement, any political visit, any, interaction between the two countries. And anything that you, any trip, any kind of interactions are mostly shared in social media by the Venezuelan officials. I mean, this is quite normal. And because the Venezuelan government is also trying to show that we are still, legitimate government. And you see there are a number of countries recognize us, helping us, continue to, remain their relations. And always Turkey's, any interaction, any engagement with Venezuela is on the social media. But in somehow, this Binali Yildirim's son visit and his COVID help did never showed up in any social media post, was never a news in the Venezuelan local newspapers. So then something is weird here. There is a huge allegations, and the prime minister is, I think, telling lie here to the Turkish public. So why? I mean, if there is nothing wrong with this trip, his son's trip to Venezuela, then why he is coming up with such a a lie? So that's why this made a little bit more clear, I guess. Something happened in his son's trip to Venezuela, and then also we know that this Turkey's relation with Venezuela, this non-transparency, as we mentioned, and also Venezuela needs Turkey in terms of remaining the financial side of the government. So that's why this Turkey's help, or Turkey's any engagement, extend a helping hand and a kind of extending a breathing room for modern administration, right? And that when we bring all these puzzles, we see that something happened, and the Sedat Peker's allegations is quite reasonable in many respects. Turkey just showed up in Venezuela at a time when the Maduro administration is increasingly isolated and increasingly, accused of doing some narco, trafficking or international drug trafficking, right? Why right now? Turkey has never experienced such a relation with Venezuela, right? So, and when the Turkey has the best relation with Venezuela, these kind of allegations come to the picture. So that's why Sedat Peker's allegation, give us some clue, and I see it quite reasonable. And there he has, I think, some reason, like he's quite right on this spotlight, like the Turkey's relation and Turkey's cocaine. I don't want to, call it as the state-led cocaine trafficking, but this prime minister's son just changed the picture, and we see that some government establishment is involved, right? State mafia relations, right? Or the deep state, like Mehmet Ağar. So all of these are showing us that, this illicit business is somehow involved by the the government officials as well, or the some bureaucratic members of Turkey.
And who else do you think might be considered sort of important characters also involved in this Turkey-Venezuela narco trafficking nexus? Because there was a few other names that came up as well. For instance, I reported on one set of individuals, the Falyali brothers, who are in North Cyprus. One of them is ostensibly a hotel owner there, and he's also him and his brother are under investigation by the Drug Enforcement Agency. Halil Falyali, he went to speak to a journalist amidst all the after the allegations against him were made by Peker, to say that he only heard about being under investigation in news reports, denied it. And then, of course, we have others. Mehmet Agar, we mentioned him already. He was also, curiously enough, involved in the Shishirlik incident in the 1990s when, the mafia and drug trafficking allegations were also rife. But then on the Venezuelan side, there's a few others. One of them that comes to mind is, of course, Tarek al-Islami. He was sanctioned he was, if I remember correctly, the oil minister of Venezuela. It's of Syrian descent, and he's sanctioned by the U.S. government. Do you think there are any other characters, or what do you think about these other figures that were brought up in the context of Pekar's videos? Do you think that they're important ones to consider as well in this story?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know enough on the Turkish side, who might be involved in this narco trafficking, because I don't have too much knowledge on this drug trafficking in Turkey and the connection uh, in the state mafia relations or other sorts of connections, like as you mentioned in the guy in Cyprus. So, but what I know in Venezuelan side, especially, for example, the U.S. prosecutors have charged, several senior government members, army officials, and others in the Venezuelan side, and especially one guy that you mentioned, Tariq al-Aissami. He's the most well-known person in terms of international drug trafficking, cocaine trafficking, and this guy has been among the most wanted list of the United States. So his involvement, actually, his trips to Turkey was also questioned. Like, I also raised this question in 2018 when he visited Turkey to uh, kind of promote this Venezuelan gold trade with Turkey. His trip was quite interesting because he was also received by the President Erdogan, and he visited many high-level officials. But this guy was well known even at that time, that he is a dark person, and he has there are lots of allegations about him. So his visit is quite problematic, and also raised the questions in the United States side. And also we know that this, especially the U.S. again in indictment said Venezuelan high-level officials are part of a cartel. It's called Carteles de los Soles, and this cartel involves several army officials as well, senior army members. So I guess, and also like this La Guaira seaport that Peker allegedly said, this seaport is under the control of Venezuelan army. So any cocaine shipment uh, from this seaport to any other countries will pass from the Venezuelan army officials. So that came to my mind that this also could include some senior army officials from Venezuelan side. But of course, in the political side, I see Tariq al-Aissami as the first point who might create such a connection with Turkey or any other country, even like Syria, because Tariq al-Aissami is, as you mentioned, is a Syrian descent, and he has strong connection with the Syrian government, the Assad regime. So when you if you look a person who who can create a bridge between Turkey, Syria, and Venezuela, I think this guy is the first come to our minds. So I think he's the one, and then the army officials, but I don't know who else from the Venezuelan government. But it's highly possible that several government officials might involved in this trade, in this business, because many of them have terrible records in terms of this international narco trafficking. And also, the Venezuelan government sometimes came with this news that some, drug traffickers have been arrested, investigated. It's just trying to give the international, kind of giving a message that, okay, we are, going after all these allegations and drug trafficking, but, still, like huge amount of shipments happening from the Venezuelan airport, Venezuelan seaport to different countries. So still there are too many, kind of corrupt actors in the Venezuelan establishment, also government establishment.
And this just rounds back to the beginning, to actually conclude this podcast. And I think everyone would like to know, of course, since many of Pekar's allegations, they have not been independently verified, of course, and how or if that will happen. I do not know how that could ultimately unfold, really, in the absence of transparency or an independent investigation, leaks, etc. And you mentioned in the beginning of this program that the relationship between Turkey and Venezuela is especially murky. So do you think that this opaqueness, or even another thing that comes to mind is the politicization of institutions in both countries, frankly, these are the main obstacles to really trying to understand where fact differs from fiction, as of course many might try to cast Pekar's allegations as.
Yeah, I think, yeah, as you mentioned, this, opaqueness, this murky relations, and non-transparency in the bilateral relations are really increasing questions. And I think we will discuss more on Turkey's relation with Venezuela in the future, because the Turkish media just understood the problems behind these relations. Because right now we see a lot of news and rumors like, well, what's happening between Turkey and Venezuela. There are lots of questions and investigations by some independent journalists, because we know that this will never happen by an investigation led by state or led by government. This will never happen. We know that, because there is no any independent judiciary. There is no independent the prosecutors or the police. This will never come to the public. So everything will be covered by the politicians, by the governments. We know that. But while this public attention raised on the Turkish relation with Venezuela, I think some journalists or some researchers might bring more kind of input into the table, right? And as I mentioned, like since 2018, I always claim that this business most likely profit and fill the pockets of some politicians in the both sides, because this otherwise, I mean, Venezuela never will will never have such a strong relations with Turkey, because Venezuela is a corrupt country, and a country who wants to make a business with Venezuela should be ready to involve in corruption, to involve in this kind of illicit business. This is the nature of Venezuelan business, right? So, and Turkey involved in, like, there's some Venezuelan companies who are opened in Turkey involved in the corruption scandals, right? Like this Alex Saab, I think he's the second Reza Zarrab of the case.
The men involved in the Halkbank case.
Yeah, like, I mean, like Halkbank case, like there is an investigation and even like indictment about this Alex Saab and his connection with the Turkish government. So these things are needed to be questioned and put into people's attention, because these are all so corrupt relations and complicated issues. So one thing also, like, for example, last week we have witnessed that for example, Turkish Airlines flight to Venezuela is increasing. Like amid this, in the middle of this COVID-19 lockdown in both countries, Turkey is trying to increase the, Turkish Airlines flight to Venezuela. And many people are asking, what, especially from Venezuelan side, what these planes are carrying, right? There is no passenger, so why you're increasing the flight? And also we know that there were some private jets always traveling between Turkey and Venezuela. So what they are carrying, right? I mean, these are just questions that the people need to ask the government, Turkish government. What's happening really between Maduro and Erdogan, between the Turkish government and Venezuelan government, and why the the son of former prime minister visits Venezuela, and what kind of business he is doing, what kind of business opportunities he is seeking for in Venezuela. These things should be questioned, especially by the Turkish media, and then I'm sure in the future we will see lots of corrupt business happen between these two countries. And I think this will be still into our in our agenda, in our discussions in the close future.
And I guess that could happen with another video, which is likely to come sometime soon from Peker at this rate. But we've approached the end of the program now, Imdat. But thank you very much for taking the time to come on here and give us this walkthrough on the very, frankly, shady relationship between Turkey and Venezuela, and really just how this fits within the wider context of Pekar's allegations, organized crime, and the opening between these two countries over the last few years. So for that, thank you very much for coming on to Turkey Abroad.
It was my pleasure, Nicholas. Thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure's mine as well. My name is Nicholas Morgan, and this is Turkey Abroad.